Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Leaving the Farm right here on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. We are simulcasting tonight on No Borders Radio at ScottishSovereignSOnTheLand.me.com, as well as These Changing Times at These Changing Times, TIMEZ, radio.ning.com. We are a listener-supported radio station, where if you'd like to donate, please go to www.freedomslips.com. Oops. Sorry about that, folks. I had the radio still going. Tonight, it's just, I don't even know what to describe the show as. Political cannibalism has hit every corner of the globe. We're watching Rome fall as we go along here. Day after day, it's getting more and more apparent to those who realize what's going on. I'll just get right into it. We've been talking a lot about law enforcement officers being used as the fall guy rather than corporate counsel. Although we have corporate counsel charged recently as January 6th, pleading guilty, from www.fcpablog.com, two oil and gas executives charged general counsel pleads guilty on their behalf. Now, that's redistribution of a corporation. And their attorneys just facilitated this thing. And it goes in line with environmentalism or agrarian economics. And for any, corporate attorney, anybody willing to read about these things, you can start with the Aristotle's Athenian Constitution and go ahead and follow that through to the use of agrarian law to redistribute the, quote, person. And, the 14th Amendment that created the person or the corporation and gave it life and called it a person is not the first use of these tactics, but I won't get into that tonight. I'll just urge everybody to go read about the Athenian Constitution and follow that through into the agrarian law. That was Caesar's agrarian law. One of the Caesars of the Assisi, anyway. And but it's interesting to see what all is happening here from Washington.cbslocal.com. Frederick officer charged with assault. Oakland, Maryland. The Garrett County Sheriff's Office has charged a Frederick police officer with second-degree assault. Frederick police say Officer Benjamin Whitmore's police powers were suspended after his arrest on Sunday. Whitmore was released on bail, but police say he's on administrative leave pending the outcome of a criminal investigation and an internal investigation by Frederick police. Police did not give details of either investigation. Whitmore has been on the force for 5 years and was assigned to the patrol division. Everybody needs to follow that one, of course, and see what all happens. There's a very, very interesting one out of Georgia. From the Atlantic Journal, AJC.com. The headline reads, Police, DeKalb detention officer charged with identity fraud. Now, any undercover law enforcement officer out there needs to listen very, very intently at this time. A DeKalb County detention officer accused of identity fraud was arrested when he showed up for work, the spokesman for the police department said Friday. Sergeant Claude Goines, who was assigned to the evening watch shift at the jail, was arrested Wednesday in connection with an ongoing investigation that could lead to additional arrests. DeKalb Police Captain Stephen Ford told the Atlantic Journal-Constitution. While Ford did not give details of the investigation, Channel 2 Action News reported that Gaines is the alleged ringleader in a credit card fraud ring. Gaines allegedly made more than 100 fake credit cards and 3 Ohio driver's licenses, according to Channel 2. Now, normally that's the function of an undercover officer. They have, different IDs, different credit cards in order to maintain their function, but apparently they're being rolled on at this time and cannibalized by politics, which is interesting to see. And this came out on February 8th, which is, of course, today. It was very interesting to read that one, and sadly, a lot of officers will not realize until they're cannibalized for doing their job. From WNEP.com, financial agent charged with theft. This is in Pennsylvania, Scranton Wilkes-Barre area. This is in Herndon. Theft charges have been filed against a man from Northumberland County. The U.S. Attorney's Office said Del Nar, 55 of Herndon, stole more than $630,000 in insurance funds. Investigators said he stole the funds while working for Allstate Financial Services from 2006 until 2012. Now, these are normal kickbacks from the insurance companies. This is normal day-to-day business that these agents are being charged with now, and sadly, political cannibalism is becoming more swift. And this is relative to what occurred in Nazi Germany after the Bayer Corporation came in and indemnified Poland. It was cutting the overhead, which means all of everybody on state employ. The appearance of racism, using Hitler as a mouthpiece, was just a presentation. It had nothing to do with racism and everything to do with political cannibalism. And what is most beautiful for me personally to see is that during Nazi Germany and related fallout from Bolshevik Russia, the intent of the creation of concepts allows a society to be capital, human head capital. And in the creation of these concepts, psychiatry is deployed against a populace to create and maintain these concepts. Priests are also psychiatrists. And you can read about these things in a book called Psychiatrists, the Men Behind Hitler. And it was all a game, it was all a show. However, the psychiatrists, the administrative level psychiatrists, escaped Nazi Germany without persecution. And of course, such as Ernst Rudin was transferred over to the American administration to facilitate the same eugenics program here in the United States Incorporated. And this time it doesn't look like that's happening. From abclocal.go.com, January 24th, Doylestown psychiatrist fondled 2 teen patients, 1 adult, DA says. Doylestown, Pennsylvania, January 23rd, 2014. A psychiatrist in Bucks County is charged with fondling 3 patients, including 2 teenage girls. The Bucks County District Attorney's Office said 42-year-old Dr. Bassem Shilweet of Buckingham was arrested late Thursday afternoon and charged with multiple counts of corruption of minors, indecent assault, and unlawful contact with a minor. Action News was on the scene as Shilweet was leaving his arraignment hearing. He tried to hide his face with his coat jacket and would not answer questions. It couldn't be immediately determined if he had an attorney. Doylestown police said they received separate reports from 3 young women from April to December of 2013, alleging Shilweet touched them inappropriately in his Doylestown office on the unit block of North Franklin. Complainant number 3, a 14-year-old, says during her visit, the doctor asked her how often she had sexual intercourse. She told him it was none of his business. He then allegedly told her to lie down on the couch so he could check her blood pressure. He later reached under her shirt and placed his hands on her left breast, according to prosecutors. as she was leaving with her father waiting in the lobby, the doctor called her over and said, "No, no, no. What happens in my office stays in my office." The affidavit reads. He said this in a creepy tone and then winked at her. The other two complainants, a 17-year-old and a woman who was 22 at the time, told similar stories, which began with the doctor saying he needed to check their blood pressure. Now, this is beautiful to see because, of course, we have psychiatrists in the schools, called a school counselor. We have psychiatrists established in a huge institutionalized state that people do not realize they're in, from the public school setting to the local mental health agency and the community passing out drugs and the like. And that's something else that I am happy to report on. From this site, crimereporter.wordpress.com, Austin psychiatrist charged with involvement in narcotics ring. This is from February 4th, 2014. An Austin doctor who police say wrote more than 400 prescriptions for narcotic pain medications in exchange for methamphetamine and cash is one of at least a dozen people charged in connection with an illegal drug distribution organization. Richard Edward Sofanowski, 47, was indicted by federal grand jury on January 21st on one count of conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine and other controlled substances outside the scope of his professional practice, according to U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Texas. He was also indicted on 2 substantive drug distribution counts, the office said. Sofanowski surrendered to federal authorities Monday and was released on a personal recognizance bond that day, the attorney's office said. R.Z. Demi, who authorized authorities say helped Sofanowski give the prescriptions in exchange for meth and money, was indicted on the same charges, according to the attorney's office. That 42-year-old remained in federal custody as of earlier this week. Prescription drug abuse has become increasingly prevalent in the community, and it is especially serious when a licensed medical professional violates his professional duties as well as federal law in illegally dispensing controlled substances. Now, that was really interesting for me to read, because the guy that attempted on me back in 2010 had his license suspended. He was a surgeon, a foot surgeon, and his license was suspended because Medicaid and Medicare were sending him threatening letters for at least 1 year, 1 full year, telling him that if he did not write out prescription for class 3 narcotics in 30, 60, and 90-day increments, they were going to cut off his funding. When he didn't comply and he didn't maintain addiction in the community, he was sent more and more letters throughout this year. At the end of that year, the DEA came in and charged him with drug offenses, made up a big, huge story, and took his license, called him a bad guy, when in reality, he was a tool of process through the CMS system to promote and maintain addiction. And he was having none of that, and of course they rolled on him. And the next thing I know, I'm being attempted on by an agent because of whatever they held over his head. And these things are profound to see that they're actually going after the psychiatrists at this time who are maintaining such concepts. From the ag.ny.gov, Attorney General Eric T. Snyderman's page, Brooklyn psychiatrist charged with $100,000 fraud following undercover probe. Attorney General Spitzer today announced that a psychiatrist practicing 1 day a week in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn has been charged with stealing nearly $100,000 from taxpayers by inflating the amount of time she spent with Medicaid patients. In some cases, the billings were for days when the doctor was on vacation or out of the office. Dr. Dana Natalia Glick, who maintains a private practice at the Gates Palmetto Health Care Center located at 585 Knickerbocker Avenue in Brooklyn, was arraigned today in Brooklyn Supreme Court on 31-count indictment. She was charged with 1 count of grand larceny in the 2nd degree, 15 counts of offering a false instrument for filing in the 1st degree, and 15 counts of falsifying business records in the 1st degree. If convicted, she faces up to 15 years in prison. The defendant only worked 3 to 5 hours 1 day a week at this Brooklyn Health Center, yet billed the state for more than $1,000 a day for having provided individual psychotherapy sessions of up to 1 hour for as many as 20 patients during this short period of time, said Spitzer. The investigation drives home our message. Quote, if you steal taxpayer dollars, you will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Yeah. Undercutting prosecuting attorneys is not a good idea to all of the psychiatrists out there. It ends up biting you in the keister. From goerie.com. This is apparently in Erie, Pennsylvania. I lived there at one point in time. Corey area physician charged with possessing child pornography. Oh, that's not loading, so we'll come back to that in a little while. From NJ.com, NewJersey.com. Ocean County doctor arrested, charged in painkiller sting. In Manahawkin, an Ocean County physician whose office was raided on Friday morning was arrested and charged with illegally prescribing Percocet and Xanax, authorities said. Leviu Holka, 55, a general practitioner, was charged with distributing more than an ounce of each of the painkillers through medically unnecessary prescriptions as a result of 8 undercover operations conducted by detectives, Ocean County prosecutor Joseph Coronado said. Prosecutors have also filed forfeiture papers to attempt to shut down Holka's practice and are seeking the title to the Beacon Avenue Medical Building where his office is located, Coronado said. Coronado tied prescription drug abuse to the county's recent wave of heroin, which resulted in a record 112 overdoses last year. Today, I include healthcare professionals in my warning to dealers who prey on those fighting this tragic disease. We are looking for you. Authorities said they found marijuana and loaded firearms in Holka's Manahawkin home, leading to additional drug charges. The doctor was also charged with money laundering in addition to the narcotics and weapons charges, Coronado said. Attempts to reach Holka by phone today were unsuccessful. Now that was his function. I mean, this is back in 2010 when, you know, the doctor was rolled on because he was not promoting addiction. And here they are, rolled on for doing what they were directed to do, which is very, very beautiful to see. As you know, if you sell your soul, what does it benefit you? What does it benefit you? And these benefits are just absolutely beautiful to see, of course, from my point of view, because of all of the things that I've borne witness to throughout time. These are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful days. Let's see now. Oh, I wanted to call attention to Bono's Entertainment, and everybody needs to go over there to the YouTube page for Bo of the Bo and Rocco Show, heard right here every Wednesday night on freedomslips.com, 10 to 12 Eastern Standard Time on Studio A. Bo has a couple stories that he's covering at this time, one of which is McGruff, crime dog actor, gets 16 years for drugs and grenade launchers. He's also got civil war being staged between cops and citizens, and so many other things. If you click on the playlist and just let it roll, you can get an update, a quick update. You know, most of these stories are, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever. Also, for the archives of these shows, Leaving the Farm, Bull Morocco, and all of the others that you hear on freedomslips.com, you can find us on YouTube as well for the archives. Or if you'd like them earlier, please visit www.freedomslips.com and click on the archive button. I think it's $5 a month to get full access to all of the archives unedited before they take the commercials out and things like that to upload them to YouTube. And again, we are a listener-supported radio station. And if you'd like to donate, click on our support us buttons. Ooh, let's see. Everybody's scared now. Obama signs farm bill that trims food stamps. This is only a bill. It hasn't been handed to the Treasury. Of course, they lost their Treasury rights or access back in November when they were found guilty of genocide against the human race. The United States Incorporated has, of course, lost its Treasury access. And what's interesting about this story was that he had a question. Should I help humanity or should I maintain corporations on welfare? And of course, the clergy for Congress, attorney-in-chief, that weight was a little bit too much for him, so he went with the corporations. Oh, if you'd like to continue patronizing that, that is your choice, but you must remember that corporations or persons, according to the 14th Amendment, have more life than you do. These fictional creations, these concepts have more life than you do, and they're the ones that were given rights in the 14th Amendment. If you read it, a person born and naturalized in the United States, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, is a citizen. You're a citizen if you are born or naturalized. You are not a person. A person is defined as a corporation. And for more information on that, go read the 14th Amendment. That, of course, the clergy for Congress signed into play way back when, called Abraham Lincoln. He was also a credit reporter for Dun & Bradstreet at the same time, as was Taft and a couple others, Garfield, I believe. And you can find that at the Dun & Bradstreet history page. Just go to dmb.com and click on the history page for some nice little trivia there. It was nice to see some exonerations this week, but I'd like to go into details on these ones from CNN.com. After decades in prison over murders, DNA evidence frees 2 New York men. And I'll warn everybody, this is sad. 2 men behind bars for more than half their lives over a triple murder walked free this week after DNA evidence tore holes in their convictions. Antonio Yarbrough and Sharif Wilson were teenagers when prison doors clanked shut behind them. Now in their late 30s, they can hardly believe they're out. What does freedom feel like? Quote, "I'm still going through it right now," Yarbrough said Friday. "I haven't slept yet. I've been up for 2 days. I have no words for it right now." Imagine more than 2 decades in a maximum security prison. Add to the fact that you're accused of killing your mother, your sister, and your cousin. If that's not enough, you were the one who discovered their lifeless, bloodied bodies when you opened the door to your home one night. It's hard to imagine what that's like. Yarbrough will tell you. After years in Attica's maximum security prison among New York's toughest criminals, he left its high, gray walls behind him Thursday. Quote, "It was a nightmare," Yarbrough told CNN's Piers Morgan in an exclusive interview. 21 years and 7 months was more than like 42 years and 7 months when you know you're in prison for something you didn't do. Now, with the Innocence Project and other presentations across the United States Incorporated, what you're not seeing is that these children, babies, end up on the scene finding their loved ones dead. And they're the ones that are criminalized and put in these prison settings and juvenile justice settings. And later, of course, they're going to claim a technical difficulty. In this one, they're actually blaming cops instead of the prosecuting attorney. They're blaming investigations instead of corporate counsel. They're blaming all these things, but those children were a cash cow as well as their parents. Of course, the FBI has a hand in all of these murders. They're directed by corporate counsel to do these things by which to steal children and enter them into the child trafficking rings. This has always been child trafficking. This is always how it ends up. And later on, of course, after they've been broken through the system, after they've been spent years and years in prison setting, after such trauma, being subjected to psychiatric care while they're in lockup, they're deployed back out into the general population. And the rate of recidivism is so high because they do not know how to adapt to outside living. And what you'll see is, later on they enter into the medical industry, they commit suicide, or they say they commit suicide, but everybody needs to wrap around them and quickly attempt to deprogram these children that have spent so many years being programmed by the state influence, and they've done nothing wrong. They are innocent children, and they need to be protected by humanity first and foremost. Last week we were covering the CEO that tried to fly off of the 9th story of a bank building. This week is an interesting twist from the dailymail.co.uk. CEO commits suicide by shooting himself with a nail gun while his company is under investigation. Richard Talley, 57, founder of American Title Services in Centennial, Colorado, was found dead in his home on Tuesday. Talley once claimed to be a member of the 1980 U.S. Olympic swimming team. USA Swimming refuted this on Thursday. Wonder why they're vilifying him, calling him a liar already. They got a ringer in the works? And I'll read from the story. The CEO has committed suicide by shooting himself multiple times with a nail gun, a coroner reported on Friday. Richard Taylor, 57, founder of American Title Services in Centennial, Colorado, was found dead in his home on Tuesday with up to 8 wounds to the torso and head. His company was being investigated by state insurance regulators at the time of Mr. Taylor's suicide. A family member found the 57-year-old dead in his garage, the Denver Post reported. Mr. Talley has been married to his wife Cheryl since 1989. He moved to Colorado from Chicago, where he was a regional finance officer for Drexel Burnham Lambert. Cheryl serves as the company's director for marketing for the title company, which was founded in 2000. He attended the University of Miami and Northwestern University's Kellogg Graduate School of Management. Ooh, that's even more interesting. If you go back, and you can find us at avalon.com, for the Avalon Project at Yale, go to the Kellogg Brand Pact and see what Kellogg really is. The couple has 2 children. He attended the, sorry about that, skipping around here. The Post also claimed that Talley had once said he was a member of the 1980 U.S. Olympic swimming team, but a spokesman for USA Swimming refuted this and said he was not ever on the team. The Department of Regulatory Agencies confirmed that an investigation was focused on Talley and the company to the Post, but gave no additional information. Talley had formed a number of companies, some of which were closed down, including American Escrow, Clear Title, Clear Creek Financial Holdings, Swift Basin, Sumar, American Real Estate Services, and the American Alliance of Real Estate Professionals. Now, this is your corporate governance, folks. The American Real Estate Services. and the American Alliance of Real Estate Professionals, an American escrow. Of course, you can't use those names if you're not part of the Confederacy. That would be patent infringement. And apparently, he's only being investigated for fraud and the like. I mean, these things are just profound to watch them tear each other apart at each other's throat. And interesting to see the dead burying the dead. Oh boy, there were so many articles today. They went after the wife of a prosecutor recently as well. Of course, this is one of them. Sorry, folks, I'm having a heck of a time with the internet today. From the SeattlePI.com, ex-Seattle prosecutor admits to hiding car after husband charged in the massage parlor rapes. So they've got the entire state here, folks, which is interesting because apparently the female wasn't turning on the male. A previously confidential Seattle City Attorney's Office report shows a city prosecutor admitted to moving her husband's car and refusing to answer police questions after her husband was accused in a string of massage parlor rapes. Accused of raping 4 women and attempting to rape a 5th, Danford Dan Grant was arrested in September 2012 after dashing away from a Greenwood massage parlor. King County prosecutors claim Grant, a founding partner in a Seattle law firm and one-time assistant city attorney, told his victims he was a police officer and pulled a knife on at least 2 of the women during a string of attacks in the months before his arrest. Now, a recently released city attorney's office report shows Jennifer Grant, then a supervising prosecutor with that office, moved her husband's Honda Pilot following his arrest on rape charges. Jennifer Grant has since resigned from the city's attorney's office where she'd worked since the mid-1990s. Writing the court, Dan Grant's attorney, Richard Hansen, claimed his client's wife moved the car because it was parked in a dangerous neighborhood off to Northwest 85th Street in the Greenwood neighborhood of North Seattle. A month passed before Jennifer Grant directed police to the FBI, or to the SUV, which she moved first to her aunt's home in Auburn and then to another North Seattle street. Investigators hired by the city attorney's office prior to Jennifer Grant's resignation opined that her decision to move the SUV only served to hinder detectives investigating a series of violent rapes. Those investigators found the claim that the SUV was in jeopardy unpersuasive. There is no evidence to support the claim that the Pilot or its contents were at risk of loss or damage if they remained where Dan parked the vehicle, the investigators found, according to the previously confidential report recently filed with the court by King County prosecutors. Quote, to the extent the vehicle needed protection, law enforcement was more than capable of securing it. Redistribution, man. Let's see. While no one has claimed that evidence was taken from the SUV, Hansen said in court papers that any evidence recovered from the SUV may not be admissible at trial. Prosecutors contend Jennifer Grant may have removed her husband's wedding ring from the SUV. Police do not appear to have recovered a knife Dan Grant is suspected of using during several attacks. Dan Grant is alleged to have raped 4 women during a series of assaults in the summer and fall of 2012, facing at least 45 years in prison if convicted. Grant is described by police as a serial rapist obsessed with Asian women who preyed on immigrant masseuses. The voluminous evidence in this case paints a striking picture of the defendant's compulsive and violent sexual assaults of numerous women in 3 cities across King County. Senior Deputy Prosecutors Val Ritchie and Corin Bond said in court papers. The prosecutors went on to describe Grant as a profound danger to the community. For his part, Grant has denied the allegations and described himself as a dutiful husband and father. Quote, my wife and 3 children are the most important part of my life, Grant said in a statement to the court. I never do this. In the first attack in which Grant has been charged, he is alleged to have attacked a massage parlor receptionist as she walked to her car in June or July of 2012. Prosecutors claim Grant identified himself as a police officer, drove her to a secluded area, and raped her in the back seat of her own car. According to prosecutors, Grant went to another masseuse's home in August 2012 after making an appointment under a fake name. The woman had previously refused to massage Grant because of his sexual advances. According to prosecutors, Grant forced his way into her home, pulled off her clothes, and raped her. This is just so disgusting. This is their function. This is what these animals do. These corporate councils, city attorneys, this is what they do. And this is what you're patronizing. And as they rape, molest, slaughter, murder citizens of their corporations to generate revenue into the original 13 colonies through what's known as the Internal Revenue Service, which is just, it's a bank routing mechanism. The IRS is a bank routing mechanism. It just allows through the 1798 Judiciary Act everything to go into attorney coffers, to go back to Congress in the action of embezzlement, extortion, genocide, human trafficking, kidnapping. And you don't see that you're in a war. You don't see that this is employed against you as a business schematic, and that you're seen as nothing more than farm animals on a farm. And as you continue to patronize this is the same Satan that's poking on Job, the same Satan, the same landlord that mentioned God's name in the story of Job in the Bible, and wants to know how patriotic you're going to be to that thing as it does these things upon you. It wants to know if you're ever going to find the self. It wants to know if you're going to listen to Jesus. It wants to know if you're going to walk the walk of God. Revelation 19. It wants to know if you know thyself, if you're going to ever hold it accountable. If you're going to stand up one day and realize, oh my gosh, it's just business. It's just business. Now when a judge comes down from a hill and says, you all are raping each other, stealing each other's wives and asses, and offers you protection in exchange for financial remuneration, this is that thing. This is that city attorney, or an attorney for a city, not an attorney for you. It's just corporate attorney for a corporation. This thing is out raping you. And then it points the finger at you and says, oh, a citizen did that. A black guy did that. A brown guy did that. And then what does it do on the back end? It says, oh, I'm here to protect you. Pay me money. Give me money, honey. And this is the way it's always, always, always been. If you actually read the Bible instead of having it interpreted for you by priests, otherwise known as psychiatrists, you can read these things. And once you realize what's written, then you can step out of the cartoon. Once you realize 1 Corinthians 6 that you're patronizing and fornicating with the Lord God, once you realize that you're sitting at Moses' right hand, Matthew 23, and that you're supposed to be sitting at the right hand of God, which is you, you realize who you're married to. You're married to the state when you're patronizing it, when you're calling that thing your father. You're entered into contract with it. while it's out getting you addicted to drugs, selling you all sorts of concepts, and it's out raping you and your kids, and it's out tricking out your kids and having child porn on in its offices as it rapes you and your kids, as it beats your head in order to injure you or bring you into law. That's how this business works. 1798 Judiciary Act. That's what shuts up the kingdom. Originally, in the separation of the spiritual and temporal, the bishop gave the sheriff access to the treasury to take care of human beings. Sheriff, the word means steward. It says protect them from attorneys. Then you have Congress, which that word means with transgression, coming in and laying you down so that you can never be resurrected. Or you never realize you need to be resurrected or standing again. The literal translation of law means to lay down. Resurrect means to be able to stand again. So here we are. Are you going to stand? Or are you going to continue to let Jesus be crucified? And there's a lot of people standing, and there's a lot of cannibalism going on. Come on, that guy just committed suicide with a nail gun. Shot himself in the stomach, of course, in the torso, right in the thing, and then got himself in the head. Now, that's a painful experience, and, you know, in my experience, it's not a fun way to commit suicide, and it's not a very common way, and it's just profound to watch these cannibalisms occur. This is what's supposed to be happening. And it's really nice to see, beautiful to see that there is actually accountability for these monsters. We have at Bo Knows Entertainment, again on YouTube, Bo Knows Entertainment. You can also click on a documentary that I did several months ago called What is the FBI? And this explains many things. It goes into the etymology of words and allows you to see what actually is happening. And there's also another video, and they're short, 3 or 4 minutes, the truth about succession and civil death. Now, when your estate is seceded, that means it's been taken over, razed. When, quote, the United States of America, which is a style, S-T-I-L-E, defined as a chain of events. It's not a geographical location at all. All it is a chain of congressional action saying, I am. And that's it. It's just blowing smoke. And when you have an entity such as that telling its sheeple citizens that it seceded from England, that is absolutely untruthful. But it told you what it did. It said it seceded the United States, lowercase, referring to the United States of being, or I am, which is what you are. When this entity comes in and it takes over all of your estates and declares you with a Declaration of Independence, in means in, dependent means dependent, or in a pending state of pendant, it declared you civilly dead. You had abjured the realm because you asked it to represent you. When you go read 1 Corinthians 6, fornication it's profound, because you can only fornicate with the Lord God And the very next statement after that is, God has raised up the Lord God, so shall he raise us up by his own power. When you go to the Constitution, first article says that power is vested in Congress, House of Representatives, and Senate assembled in Congress with transgression. So here you, God, you vested power in the Lord God. So shall you raise us up by your own power. How? Divest power? You're the authority. And you continuously ask this thing to represent you. That word means present you another way. So it did. Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, Clauses 1 and 2. You were imported and you immigrated here as birds, it says. And that bird is called a tern. It just identifies you by saying you have a sternum. It's from the family Sterni. So you can find that one in U.S. Code as 16 U.S.C. 7. Preservation Acts. One of them. Now in the state of being preserved, you're going to be pre-written, right? Or prescribed things to make you into something else. And that's the function of psychiatry. That's what the farm is all about. PFARM. It's a pharmaceutical farm maintained by Congress. This last week we were talking about the Railroad Acts, CIT, Commission International de Transportation. This is how you're transported about. You're just taken from state to state to state. First you're happy, a state of happiness. Then all of a sudden you're jumped into fear or jerked into fear by shock doctrine. It's a state of being. You've been interstate kidnapped. You've been moved about and taken and preserved and imported and emigrated and migrated and all known manner of things, charged, diagnosed, repaired. And the entire time they're cashing in on these things. It's a business. You are a product in a corporation. It's just a business. But, as we can see, Rome is falling. It's burning. And, again, you know, we've got some agents offering hearts and minds, of course. P&G is advertising feminism, which is interesting to see because they're in the death throes, and it's just profound. Of course, with a grain of salt, steroid abuse has become a major problem among police officers. You know, we used to all weight train and you know, buy into the corporate structure and body build and all that stuff. And I don't think there's ever been a time when I have not heard of law enforcement using steroids to maintain a certain physique. There's so many that take those types of poisons, hormones, that, you know, it's quite prevalent, you know, throughout the globe. It's not only law enforcement officers that are doing this. It's actually many others. another video that'll update you even faster. It's on, of course, on Bono's Entertainment. The title is Hold 'em Accountable News for February 6, 2014. And that one is a very, very in-depth, short profile. And I think that one's 10 minutes or so. From WSVN.com, police officer arrested for taking watch from burglary scene. Pembroke Pines, Florida. A Pembroke Pines police officer who responded to a burglary at a South Florida jewelry store has been arrested for unlawfully removing a watch from the business. Surveillance cameras rolled as two crooks entered the Gerald jewelry store on 110th Street and Pines Boulevard. One of the items left behind was a Movado watch valued at $800. Investigators said that the watch was illegally removed from the scene by Officer Kevin Bergs, who responded to the burglary call. Bergs is 36 years old. He was confronted at work by other officers. Bergs admitted that the watch was inside of his police cruiser. According to a police report, the act was also captured on surveillance video. The 9-year veteran has been charged with grand theft. This was common practice before this. I mean, I know that, I'm pissing off a lot of law enforcement, but they've been directed that that's okay to do because all of this business structure, this business schematic, is founded on the back end of insurance. So the law enforcement officers have been told that they can take cuts because the insurance pays out, and because of the mutual aspect of these things, going back to the original charters, the Second Charter of Virginia, for example, I think that was in 1620, establishing the mutual insurance aspect. This has always been shared mutually by the citizens wearing this millstone around their neck. And so law enforcement agents, whoever, at the scene of a robbery was told they can take whatever because the insurance is going to pay out. And now a normal day-to-day business is resulting in charges against these officers. And again, he's being charged with a commercial crime, 27 CFR 72.11, for undercutting the federal government. These are crimes against the laws of revenue. He didn't rape a human being. He didn't murder a human being. He didn't assault a human being. He's being charged with a commercial crime. That's how this schematic functions. And these law enforcement officers, they're required to have low IQs. He's going to be eating this. He's taking this. His attorney will come in with a cognitive judgment for him, certifying the judgment against him, and he'll find himself in prison for a commercial crime that, he didn't harm anybody. But this is what political cannibalism looks like. He was taught before this he could do these things because the insurance pays out. You look on what law enforcement is, you've got always, within the Sheriff's Department, law enforcement department, you've got insurance adjusters determining the damages that human beings get, which is a predetermined outcome because that agent is the one causing those things. So if if a business needs a house burned down, or a house or structure damaged up to a certain extent, it's going to be lit on fire, it's going to be destroyed in some way, or something's going to happen up to a certain amount. And this was in any other corporate structure. This is insider trading or predetermined outcome. What else? He'd be called a ringer. And now these ringers are being held accountable. These things are so sad to see, yet so profound that cannibalism is occurring faster and faster and faster. Every day we're seeing these things. I know the break is coming up. After the break here, we're going to talk about a story from CNN.com, kick out those who sexually abuse children. UN panel tells Vatican. And this is very interesting because Pope's always been a UN member. And there's claims in here that the UN is not happy with sexual abuse. You know, there's many things as the media turns against one of its productions, which is the Pope. It's a simple production. It's a presentation, something to turn your mind sideways, as in the action of psychiatry. Right back, folks. Hi, and welcome back to the second hour of Leaving the Farm right here on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. We are also simulcasting live on No Borders Radio and These Changing Times. You can find those at ScottishSovereignSontheland.ning.com in Scotland, and These Changing Times, timez.radio.ning.com in the UK. Before the break, I was talking about the UN deporting the Vatican, which is quite interesting. Now, the United Nations is a compilation of counties. Each county is described as a foreign state, foreign nation in 28 U.S.C. Chapter 97. The definitions can be found at 28 U.S.C. United States Code, subsection 1603. And in this, the United Nations is now disagreeing with the Vatican and the Catholic sexual abuse that the UN has always promoted as a form of garnering productive value from children. This stems from a teaching tool of Greece known as eros, or taking children through the action of lust by which to break them and maintain them as human chattel. This has always been the same old business schematic. It changes faces. Sometimes it's called Rome. Sometimes it's called, Germany. Sometimes it's called the United States of America. Sometimes it's called Cambodia. Sometimes it's called Vietnam or Japan or North Korea or the Republic of Korea. It's always the same thing. It's always Congress. These are all United Nations. These are all United States. They all have constitutions handed down by the same attorneys, same law-making turns. That simply means they have another Lord that they worship. To return means to pay homage to another Lord God. And of course, what they're worshiping is a concept, Marduk, under the action of Baal or Baalism, which is always piracy. You can read about piracy under 18 U.S.C. Chapter 81. You can read about privateering. You can read about all of these things that we speak about just by simply opening your eyes and looking, because everything is written, described, prescribed, inscribed, superscribed, subscribed. And that's something that, if you're patronizing something like this, a business, corporate structure, and you're subscribing, you are the underwriters of your demise. Subscribe means to underwrite. And that's something that we talk about a lot. Of course, Lloyd's of London, the insurance mart, not only includes merchants, law merchants and the like. Of course, when we say law merchant, and it's described in Amger and all these things, but law is anything that's stemming from a lexicon. With law, lexicon, or dictionary. These concepts are what you're buying from the tree of knowledge, partaking, eating up, buying concepts, participating in them. And of course, that's how you find yourself dead. Civil death. Simply by partaking of concepts. And I know that the Bible is written in the 3 variants and it's hard to read and it's dry and the priest makes it look so good and all of these things. If you read it, you'd realize it's a rule book for the Exchequer. It's the same as Blackstone's commentaries. It's the same as Emile by Rousseau, the treatise on education, how to break a human being for dummies. And you can see all of this. The Old Testament is a manifest for Congress. You go from the start, which is the doctrine of abiogenesis, meaning to be away from life, mind, and soul, biogenesis, the action of, to the second book, Exodus. Means God. Exo means outside of. So if you look at the judge when it tells you that you're harming yourselves and each other, and then it offers you protection, you're done for. You are outside of God. You're having somebody represent you, call you something else, and tell you that you're the bad guy or the bad girl. This is the same game. That's how it functions. You're the bad guy. We're the good guy. We're here to help. Pay me. Give me money, honey. Not anymore. From CNN.com, February 5th, 2014, kick out those who sexually abuse children, UN panel tells Vatican. In an unprecedented report, a United Nations committee slammed the Vatican's handling of child sexual abuse within the Catholic Church and accused the Church of protecting itself rather than the victims. Now remember, last week they came in and said, well, priests shouldn't be counseling these victims of abuse because they're the ones that abuse them. I'll continue reading. The Vatican should establish a, quote, independent mechanism for monitoring children's rights to investigate complaints and work with law enforcement, according to the report, which was released Wednesday. It calls for the Church to immediately remove all known or suspected abusers from its ranks. How's that going to work out for corporate policy? Now, heads up to corporations, because you're about to be distributed quicker than you ever thought possible. But that is what's written in Revelation. In 1 hour, this will come upon you. And of course, Matthew 23, your house will be made desolate unto you. Now going over to the House of Representatives, this is a marquee, a tent, a place where shows are put on, or specifically acts are put on. If you go back to the Gaunhausen Charter, or the House of Gowns Charter, Gaunhausen, you'll find out why. You'll find out how this is done. Let me get that up real quick and read you what it actually says in the first paragraph. Not even the first paragraph. I think it's a sentence or 2 sentences. And of course, this is 1180, when everything was shaken up. And for those that have not listened to the show before, we thank you for being here. But I urge you to go back and visit the other archives, because these are some concepts that and things that are going to feel like a punch to the head if you're not up to speed on what your government is and how you are suckered into all of these things. Jesus was walking around not in zero from their own laws and their own actions. It appears that Jesus was walking around in around 1140. Right after that, 1155 was, of course, the Bull of Pope, Scotland and Ireland. And that was a reactive experience. They were reacting to something. And when you read the Bull of Pope of 1155, you realize something's going on there. They're reacting to something. Somebody standing up and they're laying them back down. By 1180, a house came in. And of course, the houses were always there. If you go back to the Charter of Ursu, that one is maintained to have existed, oh goodness, let me go see it, 44 BC, which they're all the same. The time, they've owned and sold you time. And if you're not aware of these things, of course, that's a major function of going into court. You're buying time. Your attorney's buying time for you. When you go to the doctor, you're buying time. When you're worried about your death, you're buying time. And of course, if you look at the definition of time or mean time, it's a concept for political means. And of course, that goes into the aspect of asymmetrical warfare or fourth generation warfare. There's a lot of things against you that you're not even aware of the control mechanisms. And one of them is, of course, time and that concept and the ability to buy it. You're also buying the self. You're buying rights based on concepts. Female or male, for example, gender is a stock. Gender refers to a fiction called a stock or new genus, new species. And when you go into court and you buy rights to come with that concept, you're continuously coveting the self. I want to be. I could be. I should be. I would be if only. All of these things, when you maintain those concepts, you're buying you. You're purchasing you. You're purchasing you through education. You're purchasing you through the medical industry. You're purchasing you through the psychological industry. You're purchasing you through the criminal industry, family courts, paying your taxes. You're buying the right to be. You're saying, I'm a good girl. I'm a good boy. I haven't done anything wrong and I can prove it. Look, here's my W-2. That says I worked 40 hours a week and I was good. And I pay taxes. I was good. I am good. And of course their function is to tell you that you're bad. So you're going to be spanked on the other end of that to make sure that you're always continuously buying concepts. Buying into these things. And of course, you can go to Bono's Entertainment and find all of our little videos. You know, outside of the shows, we put together presentations or we'll take clips from the shows and break them down, show you the definitions of these things, show you where these laws are. I urge everybody to not only go to Bono's Entertainment on YouTube, but also to subscribe so that you have the latest and greatest. Bo puts out about 1 to 3 videos a day. It's not that much. It just makes it easier for you if you're first starting out, or if you're a regular listener, it helps to update you on the current news. Now, the Gownhousing Charter, since I went off on a tangent, April 13th, 1180. Quote, in the name of the Holy and Indivisible Trinity, Frederick, by favor of the divine mercy, August Emperor of the Romans, period. Since human memory is short and does not suffice for a crowd of things, the authority of those who preceded our age, semicolon, the divine emperors and kings has decreed that those things were to be written down, which the progress of fleeting time generally removes from the knowledge of men. This is the House of Representatives telling you, well, we're acting on the directives of some dead guys, and this is what they had to say to you. Of course, back then, it wasn't called the House of Representatives. It was called the House of Gown. And this is the Gownhousing Charter. So since you all have attention spans like goldfish, we're going to feed you some things here. I'm going to feed you lie after lie after lie after lie. And because I repeat it so often, this will be your new reality, or otherwise known as consensus reality. This is created by consensus creation, or the Delphi technique. Of course they say that Rand developed this process in the 50s and 60s. Of course they say that. Right in that first sentence of the Gelnhausen Charter, it maintains that they're going to be promoting the Delphi technique, Robert's Rules of Order, consensus creation, consensus reality, or from a famous quote from Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, quote, "If you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth." Now, this is the most profound aspect of any aspect of humanity or life or be living, because everything you know is founded on the Delphi technique. When I was involved in the knowledge of medicine, you can go find, quote, scientific research into such as congenital defects of children founded on the Delphi technique. The Delphi technique is, of course, using the Delphi survey, is sending out a survey to a predetermined group of individuals. Hi, it's me. I'd like to know your opinion on this, 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 and this. Only a set parameter. Remember, this is all created by set parameters. Let me send this out. How much do you know about this situation? How much do you know about this? So based on those predetermined outcome, you get an answer back that adheres to your predetermined outcome. But now you have the, quote, verification called peer review. It wasn't any peer review. You sent out the Delphi survey to somebody and they didn't argue you. They agreed with your position. They agreed based on their educational experience that you provided them. Yeah, you must be right because it's been repeated often enough that it's become the truth. Delphi survey is used in domestic violence surveys. Delphi survey is used in surveys to survey cancers. Everything that makes a business go round. And this is what you're living in. You're living in a cartoon based on capitalism, the political tool to move about human beings. Capit means head. Capital is the profit derived from the human head. Capitalism is a political tool. Inasmuch as feminism, the communist tool. Masculism, a communist tool. Racism is communism. It's grouping together many to redistribute a few. Racism can be used across the board. It can be redistributed of the, quote, Jew, of the, quote, black, of the, quote, white, of the, quote, Mexican. These are concepts. When you allow yourself to be separated, called something else, separate from what you are, a new stock, a new genus, a new species, you're far removed from the human race. Now you become another one. I'm a female. I'm a male. It's another race outside of me. Now you can buy your rights and benefits through the law merchant. And that's how the garment is rendered. How the body of Christ is torn apart in the action of dividing and conquering. At its foundation, it's called nomenclature. To grab something and give it a law. Lexicon. It stems from the doctrine of atoms, to name all things down to their smallest iota. If you want to research this, you can go back to Democritus. Demo means people. Kratos means to control or possess. the, quote, philosopher Democritus, which was a concept, was the laughing philosopher who developed the doctrine of atoms, or atomic thought. You see where this goes? Aristo means the perfect one. Tolos means to, cannot be bettered. Of course, aristocratic society maintains the perfect one on welfare, doesn't it? General welfare no longer is for human beings, as was stated in Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 1 and 2. Human beings, the United States of being, through the Treasury, was to be kept on general welfare and their common defense provided to them by the United States Incorporated, entering into contract with the House of Lords to garner Treasury monies, and that was all obliterated after they went on with that contract. The contract ended at Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3, no bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed, period. No law shall be passed after this point in time. The rest should have been commentary, but you agree with it. So now you can buy your rights. You could buy your right to free speech. But you already had the ability to speak before that. They have a really good gimmick going on. So the Gelnhausen Charter, April 13th, 1180, first sentence says, well, since they're all stupid, since they all forget anyway, we're just going to start feeding them a whole bunch of stuff that dead men said. And they did the same thing here, 1776, 1600s, 1500s, 1400s, all the way back. Time after time, this is the third time. Every 300 years, quote, Germany goes crazy and kills itself. Germany, of course, if you go back to the, let me see, I think it's Westphalia, Eastern Westphalia, Phalia. You can find where Rome was when it was called Westphalia. Now, of course, Rome is called the United States Incorporated, or the United States of America. A style or chain of events according to the Articles of Confederation. Article 12 is where the United States of being was pledged and charged to discharge congressional bankruptcy. And of course this was accepted in 1781, or so they say. By 1794 they had already gone bankrupt. Oh no, they didn't really just set that up, did they? You see where I'm going here? 1794, they came in with the Treaty of Amity, Commerce, and Navigation and posted you. Not only are you pledged and charged to discharge congressional bankruptcy, now you're posted. Well, what is posted? Every time you use or assume a fictional title, you're posting your own bond. Well, what's a fictional title? 18 U.S.C. subsection 1342 says that if you're not using the proper name, which is the first and middle, you're a felon. And of course, I was trying to explain this to others this week. You know, the maiden name that I was given was Eric's son. I'm not Eric's son. I'm a child of God. I don't need anybody to describe me as something else. You know, Robert Richard. He was given the last name Lars' son. He is not that description. He's a child of God. He can live in Lars' house. I can live in Eric's house. I'm sure as heck not their son. I'm a child of God. So why are we still using these last names? This week I was listening again to all of these things with Santos Bonacci and Dean Clifford and everything else. And Santos has been doing Katie's process and handing them the birth certificate. Okay, now, here's Santos. And pretend you're Santos for a minute. And he stands up there and he says, I have evidence of a crime being perpetrated. I have it right here in my hand. It's a birth certificate. I have evidence right here in my hand. And Katie's process says to hand that evidence over to the court. Santos just lost the evidence of a crime. Now what? He also subjected himself to their jurisdiction, claiming he wants his rights as a citizen. How's that working out for him? Of course, he's got a hearing coming up on April Fool's Day, which is interesting, because, of course, the court process is called negotiarum gestio, and the attorney, the helpful attorney, is called the negotiarum gestor, or fool. The court jest used to be called just a court jest. He wasn't called an attorney. He wasn't called a lawyer or barrister. He was simply the court jest. He entertained people, like an attorney practicing under attorney work product doctrine. Oh, you can't have that evidence. That violates this privacy law, FERPA. You can't have that evidence. This violates that privacy law, HIPAA. What a game. What an ingenious game. When judicial canon says a judge only exists bound, if he's bound by judicial canon, the judge only views evidence and rules accordingly. So when an attorney comes in and he's claiming stare decisis from 1938, and he says, you can't have that, you can't have that, you can't have that, you can't have that. It's all a show. He's a court jest. He's screaming and he's dancing. They get up there and they do their thing. I watched that one female attorney that was redistributing Jeff Erbs a couple of years ago. And she got up there and she was just dancing all over the place, playing the victim, being the little psychopath. And they're really good at acting. They are great at acting. And everybody needs to be aware of that. Whew, off my tangent again. Okay, so deport sexually abusive priests. Basically, the UN says. Good to see. Priests being cannibalized for facilitating their function. From ca.news.yahoo.com. 24 charged in $500 million New York pain pill scheme. This is from Reuters. It says 25 people, including doctors, were charged with involvement in a massive scheme that flooded New York City's black market with as much as $500 million in painkillers, federal and state officials said on Wednesday. The operation was based at a clinic operating under the name Astromed in the city's Bronx bureau, said officials who described it as a pill mill. The clinic sold phony prescriptions to drug dealers who bought 5.5 million oxycodone pills at pharmacies around the city and as far away as Florida, the officials said. Quote, this is poison by prescription, and the volume and money allegedly involved would make hardened illegal drug traffickers envious, end quote, said Manhattan U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara. Let me say that again. This is poison by prescription, and the volume and money allegedly involved would make hardened illegal drug traffickers envious. Now, these same painkillers were recently used in an execution. Hydromorphone was used in an execution, as well as a derivative of lorazepam, mesoprolam. And lorazepam, of course, is anti-anxiety medication, sold as Xanax or Valium, Ativan. These poisons are intended to kill you. And they tell you that on their labels. They tell you that on their inserts. You're still taking it. You're still being pre-written, prescribed these things. Now, you've seen the presentation of Nazi Germany and all the hoopla, you know, war zone after war zone, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, gunfire, bombs going off. According to the CDC, 42 females a day, per day, are dying from prescription overdose. What's an overdose? Enough medication that shuts down your lungs and your heart makes you die. How much is that? Long-term use of Ativan depresses your lungs, slows your heart rate, and eventually kills you. That's what it does. Long-term use of lorazepam, hydromorphone, hydrocodone, hydrocodone, all of these things that you believe are innocuous, you are taking to escape reality. I know that it's painful. I know that all of these things are painful. The political pressure, the economic pressure, the financial pressure, criminal, psychological, medical, all of the things involved in fourth generation warfare are painful. They are very painful to experience. Hard on the mind, they're hard on the body. These things are relative to every other human being on this planet. If you are sleeping or dead, you are not standing up on behalf of humanity, and you are not combating this. You are not overcoming what is upon you. Now that you know what it is, what is attacking you, slowly and methodically, through the use of what is unlawful, polycratis, politics. Poly means many. Kratis means to control or possess. Democracy, demo means people. Kratis means to control or possess. Once you realize these pressures that are depressing you of pressure, depression of pressure, once you know what is actually attacking you, and that you are in the war, you are in the war zone, you're on the war theater, you can't be drugging and doping yourself into comatose states and burying your head in the sand. Especially when these medications kill you. That's their intent. So another one is off. And another one is off. 42 females a day, according to the Centers for Disease Control. Dis-ease control. Dis-ease. Meaning you're not at ease. It's the same as discomfort. You're not comfortable. It's not disease. It's dis-ease. You're not in comfort. They're the ones making you uncomfortable and then selling you the fix, which is not a fix. It is to further enable your death. This is called genocide. It's a pogrom. This stems from Memorandum 200 from Dr. Henry Kissinger, 1974, who maintained that depopulation should be the highest priority of all foreign policy. Foreign policy is communication between foreign states. Foreign affairs, foreign policy. It's communication. These are schematics. These are things presented to you in the mind. In the mind. A concept is created in the mind. It does not exist until you take it up. You create it. Going back to Black's Law Dictionary, agency by estoppel. It's an agency created by the principal in the mind, or a third party believes it exists. Child Protection Services. It does not exist as a concept. You are buying that concept. Adult protection does not exist. It kills people. What is child protection? It's run by attorneys. What's adult protection? Run by attorneys. What's a corporation? Run by attorneys. A corporation does not exist. Walmart is not a human. It's run by attorneys. Walmart is your corporate governance since the United States Incorporated, United States of America, quote, style, chain of events, yada yada, since they declared bankruptcy in 1933. That thing didn't exist. It was attorneys. The original 13 colonies did not exist. That's a concept. That was attorneys. They came in and said, we'll represent you. And you said, oh my goodness, they agreed with the original 13 colonies, might as well accept this. At first inception, those original 13 colonies were represented by attorneys. All of this is a cartoon that you're buying into, partaking of the tree of knowledge. And that's what that is. You're partaking of the tree of knowledge, buying into it, participating, eating it up. That's what its function is. Now my internet looks like it's, there we go. Again, I want to touch on the arrest made in home insurance fraud ring. This is something so profound to see because this is what makes the world go around. This is actually the first inception of fourth generation warfare or asymmetrical warfare. Miami, this is on CBSLocal.com. Miami, nearly 24 people have been arrested after the state went after a major home insurance fraud ring operating in South Florida. At a news conference Tuesday afternoon, Miami-Dade State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle and State Chief Financial Officer Jeff Atwater said 22 people were charged in Operation Flames and Floods. Fernandez-Rundle said the group set fires and created floods in a number of homes in the Miami area over the last 7 years and made millions by filing fraudulent claims. This is what they do. That was their function. An insurance adjuster goes out, lights your house on fire, determines the damages that you're going to get while the court cashes in. Period. Bottom line. Government functions on the same aspect of religious indoctrination. In a religion, you have the top part of the corporation is money. In a government religion, you have the top part of the corporation as media. They're both the same weight. You stack things, you stack voices. Both the same thing. That's the same corporation, incorporated state that you're trusting. Second part of the corporate structure of a religion is assets. Second part of the corporate structure of a government is insurance. Same thing. Human assets, capital, is what makes insurance function. You're guaranteed to defend that title. That's what guarantee insurance is. Judicial insurance is guarantee insurance. These things are all operations of a corporate structure. Religion is a corporate structure. Government is a corporate structure. They are the same exact identical thing. Excuse me. You're worshiping something in exchange for protection. You're patronizing something in exchange for protection. Else you're all suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. The action of patronizing your captor in exchange for protection. Now, for our advanced listeners, I urge everybody to go to www.hawaii.edu/powerkills/murder.attm. Oh, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. And you can read about democide, murder by government. And I don't think that Rumble has updated for quite some time. The last time, this site was brought up years ago, and at that time it was like 84. And I haven't seen a lot of his work since, so it's not all the way updated. And of course, on this, all of R.J. Rummel's works, you're not going to find him talking about the United States Incorporated. And that is probably the reason that he's, at the last I heard, he was still alive. Because if he maintained those numbers, first of all, you can't count them. I mean, there's so many prescription accidental deaths and hospital accidental deaths and accidental deaths in juvenile justice facilities in the criminal industry, accidental deaths that are perpetrated by agents and actors. I have found it almost impossible to get those numbers and compile them, because every day, of course, the CDC admits that 42 females a day, per day, by the end of a year, that's a city wiped out through the medical industry, all to the advantage of corporations, all to the advantage of corporations. On that site, on Rummel's site, you'll find, of course, the homepage. He's got his books there. You can download them. Democratic Peace, Democide, 20th Century Democide, Mega Murders, Lesser Mega Murders, Why Democide Dimensions, Conflict Methods, Theory, Philosophy, What to Do, and Links. And, of course, years ago, this was one of my research abilities. I mean, R.J. Rummel was one of my, quote, teachers, although we've never met. I did take a lot of advantage from his research and what he had compiled up to that time. But again, I don't think that it's updated. But the reason probably for that is that he was entering into older age years ago. So I'm assuming that somebody else is helpfully maintaining the site on his behalf if he's not able to. Now, Al Capone, when you get down into what had happened to him years ago, they got him on tax evasion and everything else. But the very first inception was mail fraud. Okay? And so they finally get him in there. Of course, anybody who can research this, he ended up with syphilis. He died of syphilis in prison, which of course is through the medical industry, and of course he needed to die. These business owners, these corporations that do not play the game, have to be criminalized. Babyface Nelson, same time during the back then it was the Hoover administration adapting the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Babyface Nelson was in and out of juvenile justice, adoption centers, Boys Town. It was being implemented at the time. He was a victim of predation by the government. And when he started coming out against the government, of course, then they labeled him a bank robber and eventually killed him. But that's the whole purpose. They're used to using these children and having the children maintain silence based on various forces and threat. And throughout the years, it has gotten easier and easier and easier for them to get away with that by the use of psychiatrists. These children are taught they're the bad guy. You must have done something wrong to deserve this. And they don't ever have to say that. They teach that in their settings, their religious settings, and their counseling sessions. And from both ends of the spectrum, this child is being so severely abused and used by the system, and then taught that it's their fault. Now, the United States Incorporated looks like it's cashing in again on Al Capone's mansion. It's on the market in Miami Beach. One of Miami Beach's most notorious pieces of real estate is back on the block. The asking price is almost $8.5 million. The sprawling waterfront compound is where notorious Chicago gangster Al Capone died after being released from Alcatraz and is said to have plotted the St. Valentine's Massacre in 1929. 10,000 square foot baby blue mansion sits on exclusive Palm Island. It's sandwiched in Biscayne Bay between downtown Miami's skyscrapers and South Beach Hotel District. The current owner of Florida company managed by New York accountant Anthony Panabianco purchased the home barely 6 months ago for $7.4 million, according to Miami-Dade property records. The mansion was built in 1922 by Clarence Busch, B-U-S-C-H, a member of the Anheuser-Busch brewing family. Isn't that interesting? Now, when you go to the Association Corporate Council, which runs the world, it's the in-house council for everything. I'll read the introduction paragraph here. The Association of Corporate Counsel is a global bar association that promotes the common professional and business interests of in-house counsel who work for corporations, associations, and other private sector organizations through information, education, networking opportunities, and advocacy initiatives. Now, if you go to your county corporate counsel, you'll find that that's their attorney for your local corporation or foreign state. Now, on the board of directors, let's see here. You've got, of course, the Royal Bank of Canada, Golden State Food Corporation, and the treasurer for Association of Corporate Counsel happens to be Sabine Chalmers, Chief Legal and Communications Officer for Anheuser-Busch. Well, let's go back to Al Capone, who cashed in on his criminalization, who cashed in on his death, who cashed in on all of these things, corporate governance, and who helped him? Anheuser-Busch. Who set him up? Bush. The mansion was built in 1922 by Clarence Busch, a member of the Anheuser-Busch brewing family. Capone, who made a vast fortune importing and selling liquor during Prohibition. Wow. You see what is happening again and again and again and again in all of these years, Al Capone has been maintained as a criminal entity when in reality, he was just rolled on by his peers. The mansion was built in 1922 by Clarence Busch, a member of the Anheuser-Busch brewing family. Capone, who made a vast fortune importing and selling liquor during Prohibition, bought it in 1928 for $40,000 after being chased out of Chicago and later Los Angeles, according to Ron Chepeswick, a journalist and author of the book Gangsters of Miami. Of course, they're going to sensationalize these things and call them gangsters. But if you really want to get to the nuts and bolts, I urge everybody to go study the FBI. Whoever had initiated that, Roosevelt festered that, media festered that. Excuse me. Only a couple years ago in Manchester, United Kingdom, which is an oxymoron, they were saying that, oh my goodness, there's Indians fixing and what do you call that? I forget the name of the sport. It's not soccer, it's something like soccer. Anyway, it's a prominent sport in India, and of course in Manchester, where there's a lot of Indians that live there now, Muslim Indians, East Indians, and they were saying that there's so much bat fixing that they're establishing a new law enforcement under federal mandate. That's exactly what they did back then. When they were vilifying in the sheeple mind, Al Capone, Babyface Nelson, all of these things, it allowed the FBI to be established, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So here comes Congress. They're going to investigate their own crimes and find themselves not guilty. And they're going to investigate you and find you guilty. Of course you do that if you're the business owner. Everybody needs to wake up, open their eyes, listen very intently to what's going on around them in order to make it out of this in whole, rather than to be parted out or rendered of the garment. Now, the Association of Corporate Counsel is, of course, your government since the 1929 Geneva Convention, run by the Royal Bank of Canada, Golden State Food Corporation, Anheuser-Busch, Qualcomm, Brookings Institute, Prudential Insurance, FMC Technologies, Lockheed Martin, Space Systems Company, Capital Power Corporation, Estee Lauder Company, Vertical Screen Group of Companies, NetApp, Office Depot, Southern California Gas Company, Canon Solutions America, Whirlpool Corporation, American University, Goldbridge International, Racket Keiser Group PLC, Mayo Clinic, Morgan Franklin Corporation, Walgreen Company, Microsoft Corporation, Thomson Reuters, Tutor LLC, YourKidVid.com, Churchill Downs Incorporated, the Hershey Company, USA Track and Field. The director is Jeanette Weinberg, attorney, ex officio, president and CEO. Veda Richardson is, of course, the Association of Corporate Counsel. Everybody needs to realize what's going on. Don't go after the cops. Don't go after the minions. Stop allowing them to present something that is not. And always, always, always look for the truth. Everybody can read the arrest made in home insurance fraud ring on miami.cbslocal.com. I urge everybody to kind of watch the news down in Miami, Florida, because a lot of things are happening just the same as it was in West Virginia around October, November. Everything's shutting down. Corporate counsel is losing its hold. Everybody's being held accountable, except they are rolling on law enforcement, and I do not want that to occur unless there is guilt. See everybody next Thursday, folks. Don't miss the Bo and Rocco show Wednesday night. Every Wednesday night, Studio A. Thank you for being, and be well.